Look, I have been working as an attendance coordinator for the Galactic Combat Rings for 17 cycles now, and I have seen some truly stupid decisions in my time. But this takes the entire nutrient cake. My name is Vex, by the way. Vex Kaltor. 4 arms, purple scales, excellent at filing reports. That is what I do. I file reports, I track attendance. I make sure everyone signs the liability waivers. Boring job. Safe job. The kind of job where you go home every night with all your appendages still attached to your body. Or at least, it used to be that kind of job. The trouble started 3 days ago when manager Quill decided to, quote, diversify our fighter roster to appeal to broader audiences, end quote. Trill is a Vantaxian. Big guy. Looks like a boulder with teeth. Has the intelligence of said boulder. He watches the arena broadcast from other sectors and gets ideas. Dangerous ideas. Ideas that involve creatures from Class 12 Deathworlds. Vex, he had shouted at me, waving 2 of his massive arms. Vex, my friend, I have had the most brilliant thought. Nothing good ever follows those words. Nothing. I have learned this through painful experience. We need a human, he continued, his voice booming across the administrative office. The other workers, smart people that they are, suddenly became very interested in their data screens. I blinked at him. All 4 of my eyes, one after the other. A human, sir. Yes, a human. From Earth. Deathworld designation, 12-7-Terra. They are popular right now. Very popular. There is this whole cultural movement in the outer systems. Something called humanity. He snapped his fingers, trying to remember. Humanity. Yeah? I supplied weakly. That is it. Yes. Apparently the humans are quite entertaining when they fight. Very dramatic. Lots of, what is the word, tenacity. Sir, I said, setting down my datapad very carefully. With respect, humans are from a Class 12 Deathworld. Class 12. That is 3 classes higher than the maximum recommended fighter origin classification. The insurance alone would... Already approved? Krill announced cheerfully. I spoke with the Galactic Combat Commission this morning. They have granted us a special exception. Something about increased viewer ratings being worth the minimal risk. Minimal risk. Minimal. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to cry. I settled for updating my will. That was 3 days ago. Now let me tell you about today. The human arrived at 0600 hours station time. I was there to process her intake because of course I am always there to process intake. That is my job. I am very good at my job even when my job involves processing paperwork for what is essentially a bipedal nightmare factory. Her name was Kira. Kira Voss. 22 standard years old, which I am told is barely adult for humans. She stood approximately 1.7 meters tall, had dark brown skin and these absolutely unsettling eyes that were the color of deep amber. Her hair was black and twisted into dozens of small coils that she had tied back. She wore simple gray clothing, the kind provided during transport, and she looked around the intake facility with an expression I could not quite read. Welcome to the Vantros Combat Ring, I said, keeping my voice professional and trying not to think about how her species once killed a Krellian war beast with nothing but a rock and what humans call spite. I am Vex Kaltor, attendance coordinator. I will be processing your registration today. Please place your hand. Your appendage on the bioscanner. She looked at me. Really looked at me. Then she smiled. By the blessed stars, she smiled. You seem nervous, she said. Her voice was smooth, almost musical. The translator implant rendered it in perfect galactic common, but there was something underneath it. Something primal that the technology could not quite capture. Not at all. I lied. Professionally. Simply maintaining standard protocol. Now, if you would please. I have fought before, she interrupted gently. Back home, mixed martial arts. Some underground stuff. Nothing like this, obviously, but I know how arenas work. You do not need to be afraid of me. I appreciated the sentiment. I truly did. But she did not understand. It was not her I was afraid of. It was the situation. It was management's terrible decision-making. It was the fact that in approximately 4 hours, they were going to put this young woman, this human, into a ring with 5 Korthan warriors, and I was going to have to file casualty reports, and I did not even know which forms to use for a human death because we had never had a human die here before. I am required by law to inform you, I said, reading from my data screen, that combat in this arena may result in serious injury or death. Medical facilities are available, but response times may vary depending on a species' compatibility and severity of wounds. Do you understand and accept these terms? I do, she said. Please thumbprint here or, well, fingerprint? Do humans have fingerprints? I apologize, I am not familiar with. She pressed her thumb against the scanner. It beeped. Green light. Registered. Excellent, I said with far too much enthusiasm. Now you will be assigned to Holding Cell 7. Your first match is scheduled for 1000 hours. You will be facing 5 Korthan warriors in a standard elimination bout. First fighter unable to continue loses. Lethal force is, it is technically permitted, but we generally discourage. How many humans have fought here before? She asked. I paused. You would be the first. She nodded slowly, processing this information. And these Korthan warriors, what do they look like? Approximately 2.5 meters tall, 4 arms, exoskeleton plating. Quite strong. They are from a Class 7 world, so their gravity is higher than standard, which gives them considerable. Okay, she said simply. Just. Okay. Not. Oh dear, that sounds dangerous. Not. Perhaps I have made a terrible mistake. Just. Okay. Humans, I was beginning to realize, might have a very different relationship with mortality than the rest of the galaxy. I escorted her to Holding Cell 7 personally, because that is what the protocol demands, and also because I was morbidly curious. The holding cells are comfortable enough. Padded bench, water dispenser, a small entertainment screen. The walls are reinforced duralloy because sometimes fighters get nervous and punch things. Kira walked in, looked around, and sat down on the bench like she was waiting for public transport. The match begins in 4 hours. I told her, food will be provided if you request it. If you need anything, simply speak to the room monitor, and someone will assist you. Thanks, Vex, she said. She remembered my name, I do not know why, but that detail stuck with me. I left her there and returned to my office, where I did what I always do when management makes catastrophically stupid decisions. I updated the insurance files. I prepared the medical alert notifications, and I started drafting the incident report I was absolutely certain I would need to file in approximately 4 hours and 17 minutes. The arena holds 12,000 spectators. By 9:30 it was at capacity. Word had spread somehow. The first human fighter in galactic combat ring history. People wanted to see it. People always want to see the spectacle, the violence, the drama. I do not judge them for it. I understand the appeal, I simply choose not to participate beyond my professional obligations. I was in the control booth when they brought the Korthan fighters into the prep area. 5 of them as scheduled. They were big. Very big. Their exoskeletons gleamed under the arena lights, mottled green and black. Each one carried traditional weapons, plasma spears, shock staffs. One had a chain blade that hummed with energy. This is going to be short, said my colleague Prin, who manages the medical response team. Prin is a Soltorian, which means he has 6 eyes and can see about 14 different light spectrums. He was watching the monitors with 3 of those eyes. The other 3 focused on updating the trauma team's ready status. Maybe 2 minutes, 3 if she runs. Maybe she is tougher than she looks, I suggested weakly. Prin's laugh sounded like grinding gravel. Vex, my friend, she weighs maybe 60 kilograms. The smallest Korthan in that group weighs 200. This is not a fight, this is an execution that management is charging admission to watch. I wanted to argue with him. I could not. The math was not on the human side. At 9:55 they opened the fighter entrance gate. The Korthan warriors walked out to massive cheers. The crowd loved them. They were favorites here, won probably 70% of their matches. They raised their weapons, roared at the audience, performed the traditional pre-combat rituals. At 9:58 the opposite gate opened. Kira walked out. She had changed clothes. Instead of the gray transport uniform, she now wore fitted black combat gear that covered her from neck to feet. Her hands were wrapped in some kind of reinforced tape. No weapons, no armor plating, just herself and whatever was going on behind those amber eyes. The crowd went absolutely silent. You could hear the environmental systems humming. That is how quiet it got. She walked to the center of the arena, stopped exactly at the marked starting position, and waited. Her face was calm. Not scared, not excited, just calm. Ready. The match coordinator, a Talaxian named Bront, activated the announcement system. Combatants ready. Standard elimination rules. Match continues until one side is unable to fight. Lethal force permitted but not required. Medical team standing by. Fight begins in 3, 2, 1. The horn sounded. The Korthan warriors charged. Kira did not move. This, I thought, was it. This was where the poor human girl would realize she had made a terrible mistake, and management would learn an expensive lesson about why we have fighter classification systems, and I would spend the rest of the day filling out death reports. The first Korthan reached her, plasma spear raised high, ready to strike. Kira stepped sideways. Not a big movement, not a dramatic leap. Just a small, precise step that put her exactly 3 centimeters outside the spear's range. The weapon slammed into the arena floor where she had been standing, and the Korthan stumbled slightly from the momentum. That was when Kira's fist connected with what I think was the warrior's throat. Though honestly, the anatomy happened so fast I am still not entirely sure what I saw. The Korthan made a choking sound, dropped the spear and fell backward, gasping. 10 seconds. The match had been active for 10 seconds. "What?" said Pren, very quietly. The other 4 Korthan warriors hesitated. You could see it, the brief moment of confusion, the recalculation happening behind their compound eyes. This was not supposed to happen. The small human was supposed to be easy, weak, fragile. They adjusted their strategy and attacked together. Kara moved like water. No, not like water. Like something faster, like electricity, like a blade cutting through silk. She was under the second warrior's guard before he could swing his shock staff, her elbow driving up into what passed for a Korthan's solar plexus. He folded. The third warrior came from her left. She dropped low, swept his legs, all 4 of them. The warrior crashed down hard enough that I felt it through the control booth floor. The 4th and 5th warriors were smarter. They separated, trying to flank her. The crowd was starting to make noise again, a rising murmur of disbelief. Kira picked up the dropped plasma spear. "Oh no," I whispered. She spun it once, testing the weight, then threw it like a javelin directly at the 4th warrior. It hit him square in the chest plate. The plasma tip did not penetrate the exoskeleton, but the impact sent him flying backward into the arena wall. He hit with a sound like a gong and did not get up. That left one Korthan warrior on his feet. He looked at Kira, looked at his 4 downed companions, looked back at Kira. She smiled at him. Not a nice smile. A smile that said, "Your move." He dropped his chain blade and raised all 4 arms in the traditional Korthan gesture of surrender. The crowd absolutely lost their minds. People were screaming, cheering, throwing things into the arena. The noise was deafening. Pren was checking his chrono, then checking it again, then checking it a 3rd time like somehow the device was broken. 43 seconds, he said. 43 seconds. I pulled up the fighter status board. All 5 Korthan warriors were marked as unable to continue. Medical teams were already moving in to check them. None of them appeared to be seriously injured, just thoroughly defeated and, I suspect, extremely embarrassed. Kira stood in the center of the arena, breathing only slightly harder than when she started, and waited to see what would happen next. What happened next was Manager Krill bursting into the control booth, his massive body barely fitting through the door, his voice at approximately 9,000 decibels. "Another match," he bellowed. "Set up another match. Immediately." "Sir," I said, "the fighter needs time to rest. We need to review the medical data. There are protocols." The crowd wants more. Look at them. He was not wrong. The arena was still going absolutely insane. People were chanting something in multiple languages. I think it was the human's name. "Sir, we do not have another match scheduled for this time slot." "Then make one. Use the Thraxian team. They are here for their evening match. Move it up. Pay them double." Pren and I exchanged a look. The Thraxian team was 3 fighters, professional combat specialists. They had been competing in the rings for 6 years and had won 94% of their matches. "Sir, that might be," I started. "Do it. When management speaks, workers obey. That is how employment functions. Even when management is clearly experiencing some kind of temporary insanity brought on by crowd enthusiasm and possible brain parasites." I contacted the Thraxian team's handler, explained the situation, offered the double payment. There was a long pause on the comm line. Is this the human fighter everyone is talking about? The handler asked. Yes. Another pause. We accept. Give us 10 minutes to prepare. I switched the comm to the arena medical channel. Medical Team 1, what is the status on the human fighter? She is fine, came the reply. Barely elevated heart rate, no injuries. She is asking if there is water available. Of course she was asking about water. Why would she ask about anything reasonable like rest or medical evaluation, or perhaps reconsidering her entire life choices? We gave her water. We also gave her 10 minutes while the Thraxian team prepared. She spent those 10 minutes sitting on the arena floor, drinking water and doing these strange stretching movements that bent her body in ways that looked deeply uncomfortable. The Thraxian team entered the arena at 10:14. They were impressive. I will give them that. Thraxians are reptilian, about 2 meters tall, covered in interlocking scales that serve as natural armor. They fight as a unit, perfectly coordinated, using tactics that have been refined over thousands of years of warfare on their homeworld. They carried energy shields and pulse weapons. Kira stood up, handed her water container to a medical drone, and took her position. The horn sounded. This fight lasted 92 seconds. I will not bore you with all the details, but I will tell you that Kira somehow managed to use one Thraxian's own shield against him. That she executed a move that involved using another fighter's momentum to throw him into the third fighter, and that at one point she literally climbed onto a Thraxian's back and did something to his neck that made him go immediately unconscious. When the last Thraxian fell, unable to continue, the arena crowd was beyond rational thought. People were screaming in frequencies I did not know were possible to produce. Betting stations were being overwhelmed. The food vendors had stopped selling because everyone was too busy watching to eat. And Kira, standing there among 8 defeated opponents from 2 separate matches, just looked up at the control booth and gave a small shrug, as if to say, "What did you expect?" "More!" Manager Quill was screaming. "More matches! This is incredible! This is ratings gold!" "Sir," Prince said, his medical professional voice cutting through the chaos, "we need to give the fighter a proper break. This is not sustainable. 30 minutes! Give her 30 minutes, and then set up another bout. Use whoever is available. I want this human fighting until the crowd gets bored. And the crowd is not bored. I want to be very clear about something here. This was not normal. This was not how the rangs operated. We had schedules, protocols, safety regulation, but management was in a frenzy. The crowd was demanding more, and somewhere in some regulatory office, I am certain, alarms were going off that everyone was cheerfully ignoring. We gave Kira 30 minutes. She spent it eating something the food service team brought her, a high-protein meal that she consumed with mechanical efficiency. She did not look tired. She did not look worried. She looked focused. At 10:57, we sent in 5 Grillian brawlers. Grillians are big, bigger than Korthans. They are from a heavy gravity world, which makes them incredibly strong and extremely difficult to hurt. They fight with bare hands because they do not need weapons. Their fists are weapons. The match lasted 4 minutes. Kira beat all 5 of them. I will not describe how, because I am still not entirely sure I believe what I saw, and I watched the footage 3 times. There was something involving a joint lock that should not have been possible given Grellian physiology, and at one point she kicked one of them so hard in what I assume was a vulnerable spot that he made a sound like a dying transport engine and simply fell over. 8 defeated fighters in Hour 1 had become 13 defeated fighters by Hour 2. The crowd was in a state that I think might be legally classified as hysteria. And then Manager Krill made his worst decision yet. "Bring in the Razorbacks," he shouted. Everyone in the control booth went very, very quiet. "Sir," I said carefully, "the Razorbacks are a Category 9 aggressive species. They are only permitted to fight other Category 9 species. Regulations specifically state, exception status. We have exception status for this human, Category 12 Deathworlder. She can handle it." The Razorbacks were not fighters. Not really. They were barely sentient beings who participated in arena combat because the alternative was containment on a prison world. They were 2.8 meters of muscle, claws, and teeth. They killed for the sake of killing. We only used them once a month in heavily controlled matches with multiple medical teams standing by. Management wanted to put 3 of them in the ring with a 22-year-old human girl who weighed maybe 60 kilograms. "I am filing an official protest," I said, my hands already on the data pad. "This is beyond dangerous. This is negligent. I am required by my position to noted and overruled. Bring them in. The Razorbacks entered through the reinforced containment gate at 11:23. The crowd noise changed. The excitement became something else. Something darker. People started moving toward the exits. Not many, but enough. Enough that I knew they understood what we were about to witness. Kira looked at the Razorbacks. The Razorbacks looked at her. One of them, the biggest one, made a sound like grinding metal and showed teeth the size of human fingers. She did not step back, did not reach for a weapon. Just stood there and waited for the horn. I almost activated the emergency stop. I truly did. My hand was on the control, but I did not press it because some part of me, some stupid, curious part, wanted to see what would happen. Wanted to know if this human, this impossible human, could survive this too. The horns sounded. The Razorbacks charged. What happened next has been reviewed by the Galactic Combat Commission 14 times, and there is still debate about whether it should have been allowed to be broadcast.
I will tell you what I saw.
Kira went for the biggest Razorback first. Not away from it, towered it. She ducked under its initial swipe, came up inside its guard and did something to its leg that made it collapse sideways. Before it hit the ground, she was already moving to the second Razorback, using the fallen one's body as a springboard to launch herself at the second one's head. She rode it like someone riding an animal, wrapped around its neck, and I think she was hitting pressure points or nerve clusters because the Razorback started stumbling, disoriented. The third Razorback grabbed her from behind with one massive claw. The crowd gasped. This was it. This was where the human died. Razorback claws can shear through duralloy plating. A human body would be torn apart like wet paper. Kira twisted in the grip, somehow, impossibly, and drove her thumbs into what must have been the Razorback's eyes because the creature screamed and let go, stumbling backward. She landed on her feet, breathing hard now, actually showing signs of effort, and faced down three Razorbacks who were now injured, angry, and extremely motivated. They came at her together. She picked up a piece of broken arena flooring, probably 20 kilograms of duralloy panel that had been damaged in an earlier match and never properly repaired, and swung it like a bat at the nearest Razorback's head. It connected with a sound that I felt in my bones. The Razorback went down and stayed down. The second Razorback lunged. Kira dropped under the lunge, came up behind it, and jumped onto its back. She wrapped her arms around its neck and held on while it thrashed and spun and tried to shake her off. It could not. She held on until the Razorback's movements became sluggish, until it started to sway, until it finally collapsed from what I assume was oxygen deprivation. That left one Razorback, the biggest one, the one she had dropped at the start. It was back on its feet now, limping but functional, and it looked at this small human who had just defeated two of its packmates with it but determination and violence. They stared at each other across the arena floor. The crowd had gone completely silent again. Even the environmental systems seemed quieter. The Razorback charged. Kira did not move until the last possible second. Then she dropped flat, let the Razorback's momentum carry it over her, and as it passed, she grabbed one of its legs and twisted. The sound of the Razorback's leg breaking echoed through the entire arena. It fell, howling. She was on it immediately, her hand on what I think was a major artery or possibly a neural cluster, pressing down with precise force until the Razorback stopped moving. Not dead. Just unconscious. All three Razorbacks down. Fight time, 8 minutes and 47 seconds. Kira stood up, swayed slightly, and then straightened. She looked up at the control booth, and even from this distance, I could see her expression. She was done. Not just done with this match, done. That look said very clearly, no more. Manager Krill was staring at the monitors like he had witnessed a religious experience. Incredible, he breathed. Incredible. We need to schedule more matches. We need... No. It turned to look at me. What? No more matches. Not today. Look at her. She is exhausted. We have violated approximately 47 separate safety regulations in the last 2 hours. If you send her back in that arena, someone will die. Maybe her? Maybe the next fighters. Maybe someone in the crowd when the situation spirals out of control. But someone will die, and I will not file that report. For a long moment, Krill just stared at me. All around us, the control booth staff was holding their breath. Then Krill nodded slowly. Fine. End today's matches. But tomorrow we follow proper protocol, I interrupted. Or I quit. and I will take every safety regulation we broke today directly to the commission. Your choice. It was probably the bravest thing I have ever done in my professional career. It was also probably the stupidest, but I meant. Krill looked like he wanted to argue. Then he looked back at the monitors, at Kira standing among 3 unconscious Razorbacks and the debris of 8 other defeated fighters, and something in his expression changed. Tomorrow, he said quietly, we follow protocol. I nodded and turned back to my station. Down in the arena, medical teams were swarming in to check the Razorbacks and to escort Kira out. She walked with them, steady on her feet despite everything, and as she left through the fighter exit, she looked up one more time at the control booth. I swear she looked directly at me, and she smiled. Not the scary smile from before, a different one, a tired one that said, thank you. Humans, I was learning, were far more complicated than I had been led to believe. The next morning I arrived at the arena at 0500 hours, because I do not sleep well when I know management has made terrible decisions. Which, to be fair, is most mornings. But this particular morning was special. This morning I had to deal with the aftermath of yesterday's absolute carnival of regulatory violations and impossible human violence. The waiting room outside my office was full. Not full like, oh, there are a few people waiting. Full like, there are approximately 40 sentient beings crammed into a space designed for 10, and they are all trying to talk at the same time. One at a time, I shouted, which did absolutely nothing because when has anyone ever listened to an attendance coordinator? The crowd was a mixture of arena staff, fighters, medical personnel, and several beings I did not recognize, but who were wearing the badges of the Galactic Combat Commission. That last part made my stomach drop somewhere in the vicinity of my feet. Ves Cultor, one of the commission officials, pushed through the crowd. She was a Prelian, tall and thin with crystalline skin that refracted light in uncomfortable ways. Her badge read Inspector Thane. We need to speak with you immediately regarding yesterday's events. Oh good. An investigation. Exactly what I needed before I had even consumed my morning nutrition supplement. Of course, Inspector, I said professionally. My office is just through here if you would follow me. We squeezed through the crowd, which took approximately 3 years off my lifespan due to stress, and finally made it into my office. I closed the door behind us, muffling the chaos outside to a dull roar. Inspector Thane did not sit down. She stood in the middle of my office, looking at me with eyes that had probably seen every terrible decision ever made in the history of arena combat. 47 violations, she said flatly. We counted 47 separate regulatory violations in yesterday's event. Fighter safety protocols ignored, medical rest periods skipped, inappropriate opponent matching, use of Category 9 aggressive species against an unclassified fighter. Shall I continue? No, Inspector. I am quite aware of the violations. I logged each one in real time and filed official protests which were overruled by management. She pulled out a datapad and checked something. So I see, your protest logs are actually the only reason we are having this conversation instead of immediately shutting down this facility. She looked up at me. The Commission is very interested in this human fighter. Very interested. We need to conduct a full assessment. She is probably still sleeping. I said, yesterday was, well, you saw the reports. We did. We also saw the viewership numbers. Do you have any idea how many people watched yesterday's matches? Across how many systems? I did not actually, but I could guess. Many. 14.6 million live viewers at peak. Another 30 million have watched the recorded footage in the last 12 hours. The human, what was her name? Kira Voss. Kira Voss is currently the most talked about fighter in 6 sectors. There are sponsorship offers, media requests. 3 separate entertainment networks want to produce a documentary. The betting syndicates have collectively lost approximately 40 million credits because nobody expected her to survive the first match, let alone all of them. I sat down heavily in my chair. Inspector, I understand the commercial interest, but surely the safety concerns outweigh. They do, which is why we are here. We need to properly classify this fighter, establish appropriate protocols, and make sure nothing like yesterday happens again. She paused, her expression softening slightly. Off the record, I watched the footage 5 times. That human is either the luckiest being in the galaxy, or she is something we have never encountered before. We need to figure out which. There was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Prin, my medical colleague, looking frazzled. Vex, the human is awake and requesting to speak with you. Also, there are approximately 60 beings outside claiming to be her fans and demanding autographs. Also, Manager Quaffle wants an emergency meeting. Also, I think I am having a stress-induced medical episode. Get in here, I said, pulling him inside and closing the door again. Inspector Thane was already on her communicator. Send in Assessment Team 3. Full evaluation. I want combat specialists, xenobiologists, and a psychological evaluator. Also, get me the original intake files on the human. Everything. This was going to be a very long day. I found Kira in the fighter common area, which is a recreational space where fighters can relax between matches. She was sitting at a table eating what appeared to be a massive breakfast, and I mean massive. There were 5 plates in front of her, all containing different foods from various cultures. She was working through them with focused efficiency. "Good morning, Vex," she said when she saw me. She looked tired, but not as tired as I expected. Her movements were still fluid, still controlled. "Good morning, Kira. How are you feeling?" She considered the question while chewing something that looked like Tyrellian grain cakes. "Sore, hungry, confused about why there are people outside chanting my name. You are famous now. Yesterday's matches were, they were watched by many beings. Many beings." She stopped eating and looked at me with those amber eyes. "Is that a problem?" "It is complicated. The Galactic Combat Commission is here to evaluate you. They need to properly classify you as a fighter, establish safety protocols. Yesterday was, and I cannot stress this enough, not normal procedure. I noticed," she said dryly, 3 Razorbacks seemed excessive. It was completely excessive. It was dangerous and irresponsible, and management has been formally reprimanded. But also, you won, which has created a significant problem because now everyone wants to see you fight again, and the Commission needs to make sure that any future matches are actually safe and regulated. Kira nodded slowly, processing this. "What do they want from me?" "Tests. Evaluations. They need to understand your capabilities so they can properly match you against appropriate opponents." I hesitated, then added, "They are also going to ask you a lot of questions about Earth and human physiology and combat training." "Okay," she said, and went back to eating. "Just? Okay." Again, the evaluation took 6 hours. I was present for most of it because, apparently, my protest logs had made me the unofficial liaison between the Commission and the fighter. Lucky me. They started with physical tests. Strength, speed, endurance, reflexes. Kira performed each test with the same focused efficiency she brought to eating breakfast. The results were, according to the xenobiologist on the assessment team, quote, "statistically improbable for a being of her size and mass. Humans have very dense muscle tissue," Kira explained when asked. "Also, Earth gravity is higher than standard galactic norm. We are built for it." The combat specialists made her demonstrate various techniques, fighting stances, strikes, defensive maneuvers. She showed them things called Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing, and something called Krav Maga that the specialist watched with what I can only describe as horrified fascination. "Your species teaches children these techniques?" one of them asked. "Some children," Kira said. "If they want to learn, it is not mandatory. And adults who want to compete, or who want self-defense training, yes. It is fairly common." The specialist exchanged glances that said very clearly, "This explains so much about humans." The psychological evaluator was a Mindari, a species known for their empathic abilities. She spoke with Kira for over an hour in a private room. When she emerged, she looked troubled. "Well?" Inspector Thane asked. "She is perfectly sane," the evaluator said. "Remarkably well-adjusted, actually, considering her circumstances, strong sense of purpose. No indicators of aggression disorder or pathological violence. She fights because she is good at it and because she sees it as a challenge to overcome. But," Inspector Thane prompted, "but she does not fully understand how dangerous she is. To her, yesterday's matches were difficult but manageable. She believes she was being appropriately challenged. She does not realize that from a galactic perspective, what she did was nearly impossible." Inspector Thane turned to me. "Vex, in your professional opinion, is this fighter a danger to others outside of sanctioned matches?" I thought about Kira sitting in my office, drinking water, asking polite questions. I thought about her smile when I stopped management from sending her back into the arena. No, Inspector. She is disciplined and controlled. She fights when the horn sounds and stops when the match ends. She is actually less dangerous than many fighters we employ because she has that control. Very well. Inspector Thane pulled out her datapad and began entering information. Kira, Voss, human, Class 12 Deathworld origin, provisional classification as Category 8 Specialist Fighter pending further review. She will be permitted to continue competing under the following conditions. She looked at Kira directly. 1 match per day maximum. Mandatory medical evaluation before and after each match. Opponents must be properly matched to your demonstrated capabilities. No more improvised scheduling. And absolutely no more Razorbacks unless you specifically request them. I do not want to fight Razorbacks again, Kira said immediately. They were mean. Several members of the assessment team made sounds that might have been laughter. Agreed, Inspector Thane said. Vex, you are now officially assigned as this fighter's coordinator. You will work with management to schedule appropriate matches and ensure all regulations are followed. Any violations will result in immediate facility shutdown. Am I clear? Crystal clear, Inspector, I said, wondering when exactly my simple filing job had turned into babysitting a human weapon of mass destruction. The assessment team packed up their equipment and left. Inspector Thane paused at the door. Vex, keep her safe. The galaxy is watching. No pressure then. That afternoon I had the emergency meeting with Manager Krill. He was in his office, which was decorated with trophies from successful fighters and what I suspected were motivational posters he did not actually understand. Vex, he boomed when I entered. Excellent news. We have been approved for a special exhibition match series. 6 matches over 3 weeks. The viewership projections are incredible. Manager Krill. Did you hear the commission's requirements? 1 match per day maximum. Properly matched opponents. We cannot just... Yes. All approved. I have already selected the opponents. All properly classified. All eager to compete. He pulled up a display showing 6 fighter profiles. Week 1, she faces the Darien Twins. Week 2, the Vor Champion. Week 3, the Skelix Prime team. All within appropriate parameters. I reviewed the profiles. He was right. They were all appropriate matches. Challenging but not suicidal. Category 7 and 8 fighters with good records but not unbeatable. And Kira has agreed to this? I asked. I am about to ask her. That is why you are here. You are her coordinator now. Yes? Coordinate. This was going to be a disaster. I could feel it. We found Kira back in the common area, now surrounded by several other fighters who were asking her questions about Earth and humans and combat techniques. She looked slightly overwhelmed, but was answering politely. Kira Voss, Manager Krill announced, his voice scattering the crowd like startled birds. I have a proposal for you. She stood up, polite as always. Sir, 6 matches. 3 weeks. Excellent opponents. Massive viewership. Are you interested? She looked at me. I gave her a tiny shrug that said, your choice. What are the terms? She asked Krill. Standard fighter contract. Plus performance bonuses, plus accommodation and meals, plus medical coverage, plus a very generous signing bonus because you are now our star attraction. Can I think about it? Quell looked like she had asked if she could consider breathing. Think about it. This is an incredible opportunity. Fame, fortune, glory. I understand, sir. But I would like to review the contract details and discuss them with Vex before I agree, if that is acceptable. Manager Quill looked at me, I looked at Kira. She looked back at me with an expression that clearly said, help. That is completely reasonable, I said. We will review the contract and provide an answer by end of business today. Krill grumbled but agreed. And we left his office with the contract files loaded on my datapad. Thank you, Kira said quietly as we walked through the corridors. I did not know if I was allowed to ask for time. You are allowed to ask for anything within reason. You are the fighter, not management's property. The contracts have to be fair. We reviewed the contract in my office. It was, surprisingly, actually fair. Good pay, reasonable conditions, proper medical coverage. The performance bonuses were substantial. If Kira won all 6 matches, she would earn enough to be financially secure for several years. What do you think? She asked me. I think it is a good offer, I said honestly. The opponents are well matched. The schedule is reasonable. And frankly, after yesterday, these matches will probably feel easy by comparison. She smiled slightly. Yesterday was not easy. You made it look easy. There is a difference. She was quiet for a moment thinking. Then she asked, Vex, why did you stop them yesterday from sending me back out? I had not expected that question. Because it was wrong. Because you were exhausted and pushing you further would have been dangerous. Because sometimes doing the right thing is more important than following management's orders. You risked your job for me. I risked my job for basic safety standards. You just happened to be the fighter involved. She looked at me with those unsettling amber eyes, and I had the distinct feeling she did not believe my deflection but was kind enough not to push. I will take the contract. If you think it is I trust your judgment. And just like that, I became responsible for the career and well-being of the galaxy's most dangerous human. The first match of the exhibition series was scheduled for 3 days later. The opponents were the Darien twins, a pair of fighters from a heavy world who specialized in coordinated attacks. They were good, very good. They had won 80% of their matches over the past 2 years. The arena was sold out before tickets even officially went on sale. The secondary market prices were absurd. Someone paid 15,000 credits for a front row seat. 15,000 credits to watch beings hit each other in a acidal environment. I will never understand spectator sports. Kira spent the 3 days training in the practice arena. She requested a combat coach, and we provided one of the best available. A Turellian named Max, who had trained champions across 4 sectors. On the second day of training, Max came to my office looking disturbed. Is there a problem? I asked. No problem, I just... Vex, that human does not train like anyone I have ever worked with. She is relentless. I tell her to take a break. She asks for more drills. I show her a technique. She masters it in an hour. She is either going to be the greatest fighter in galactic history, or she is going to burn out spectacularly. Which do you think is more likely? He considered this. With anyone else? Burnout. With her? I genuinely do not know. The day of the match arrived. I had prepared everything meticulously. Medical teams on standby, emergency protocols reviewed, safety equipment checked and double-checked. I was not going to have a repeat of the first day's chaos, not on my watch. Kira arrived at the arena early, calm and focused. She had new combat gear, properly fitted, provided by one of the sponsors who had eagerly jumped on the opportunity to have their brand associated with the human sensation. Ready? I asked. Ready? She confirmed. The match started at 1400 hours. The Darien twins entered first to massive applause. They were crowd favorites. Then Kira entered, and the noise level approximately tripled. People were cheering, chanting, holding up signs in multiple languages. The horn sounded. The twins attacked with perfect coordination, exactly as expected. They had clearly studied footage of Kira's previous matches. They stayed mobile, never giving her a chance to focus on one of them, constantly forcing her to defend from multiple angles. It was working. For the first minute, Kira was purely defensive, unable to mount an effective counterattack. Then she changed tactics. Instead of trying to fight both twins at once, she focused entirely on defense against one while completely ignoring the other. It looked like a terrible strategy. It looked like she was about to get hit from her blind side, except when the second twin attacked, she was not where he expected her to be. She had moved at exactly the right moment, and his attack hit his own brother instead. The crowd gasped. Kira used the moment of confusion to strike, taking down the first twin with a combination of hits that happened so fast I could barely track them. Then she turned to the second twin, who was now alone and realizing he had made a tactical error. The match ended in 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Both Darien twins defeated, crowd going absolutely wild. Kira stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard but steady, and raised one hand in acknowledgement of the audience's cheers. She was learning how to be a performer, not just a fighter. The next 2 weeks followed a similar pattern. One match every few days. Each opponent carefully selected, each match more challenging than the last. Kira won them all. Not easily, not without effort. But she won. The Vor champion lasted 7 minutes. The Skellig's prime team lasted 9. Each match, Kira demonstrated new techniques, new strategies, new ways of using her human physiology to overcome opponents who were larger, stronger, more heavily armed. And each match, the crowds grew larger. The viewership numbers climbed higher, and the betting syndicates learned to stop betting against the human. By the start of week 3, Kira Voss was not just famous, she was a phenomenon. There were fan clubs, there was merchandise, there were educational programs discussing human biology and Earth's classification as a death world. There were debates in academic circles about whether humans should be allowed to compete at all or if it was fundamentally unfair to other species. Through all of it, Kira remained focused and professional. She trained, she fought, she won. And then she went back to her quarters, ate massive amounts of food and slept. The final match of the exhibition series was against a fighter called the Breaker. His real name was something unpronounceable in Galactic Common, but everyone called him the Breaker because that was what he did to Ontans. He was from a Class 9 world, stood 3 meters tall, had armor plating that covered most of his body, and had never lost a match in 8 years of competition. This is going to be difficult, I told Kira the night before the match. We were reviewing footage of the Breaker's previous fights. He is extremely strong and his armor makes him very hard to hurt. Most fighters try to wear him down over time, but he has incredible endurance. What is his weakness? Kira asked, studying the footage. According to the analysis, he has slightly slower reaction time than average for his species, and his armor has gaps at the joints, but exploiting those weaknesses requires getting very close, which is dangerous because of his strength. She nodded, absorbing the information. I can work with that. The next day, the arena was beyond capacity. There were people watching from the corridors on video screens. The betting pools had reached record amounts. This was the match everyone had been waiting for. The unstoppable human against the unbeatable Breaker. I was more nervous than I had been for any previous match. This one felt different, more dangerous. The Breaker was not just strong, he was experienced. He had fought hundreds of matches. He knew every trick, every strategy. Kira entered the arena to deafening cheers. She had become comfortable with the attention, even seemed to draw energy from it. She took her position and waited. The Breaker entered from the opposite side. His armor gleamed under the lights. His footsteps shook the arena floor. He looked at Kira like she was a minor inconvenience he would remove quickly before getting lunch. The horn sounded. The Breaker did not charge like previous opponents. He advanced slowly, deliberately, forcing Kira to either retreat or engage on his terms. She engaged. Her first strike hit his armor and bounced off harmlessly. Her second strike, aimed at a joint gap, was blocked by his massive arm. He swung at her, a blow that would have ended the match instantly if it connected. It did not connect. Kira was already moving, circling, looking for openings. This continued for 3 minutes, Kira attacking, the Breaker defending and counterattacking, neither gaining significant advantage. The crowd was completely silent, watching with intense focus. Then Kira did something unexpected. She stopped moving. Just stopped, standing directly in front of the Breaker, seemingly exhausted. He saw his opportunity and lunged forward, both arms reaching to grab her. She dropped flat on her back and kicked straight up with both legs, catching the Breaker under the chin with incredible force. His head snapped back. His momentum carried him forward. He tripped over Kira's prone body and crashed into the arena wall behind her. Before he could recover, Kira was on his back, her arms wrapped around his neck, applying pressure to what I assume was a critical blood vessel or nerve cluster. The Breaker thrashed. He tried to reach behind himself to grab her. He slammed his body backward into the wall, trying to crush her. None of it worked. She held on with absolute determination. 10 seconds. 20. 30. The Breaker's movements became slower, less coordinated. At 45 seconds he dropped to one knee. At 1 minute he fell forward onto his hands. At 1 minute and 15 seconds he went completely still. Kira released her hold and rolled clear, breathing hard, sweat pouring down her face. The match referee checked the Breaker, unconscious but alive, unable to continue. The crowd absolutely erupted. The noise was so loud I felt it in my bones. People were crying, screaming, throwing things into the arena in celebration. The betting syndicates were probably having collective heart failures. Kira stood up slowly, clearly exhausted now, and looked around at the chaos she had created. Then she looked up at the control booth, found me, and gave that same tired smile from the first day. I smiled back. Manager Quill was in the control booth, practically vibrating with excitement. Unprecedented. Magnificent. We need to book more matches immediately. I am thinking a championship tournament, or maybe a tour of other arenas, or perhaps— No, I said firmly. He turned to look at me. What? She needs rest. Real rest. Not just a day or two. Weeks. Minimum. You saw that match. It took everything she had. But the viewership numbers. The demand. People want to see more. People always want more. That does not mean we give it to them at the expense of the fighter's well-being. She has competed in 7 matches in 3 weeks. She has earned a break. For a moment I thought Quill would argue. Then he looked at the monitors, at Kira being helped out of the arena by medical personnel, and he deflated slightly. Fine, 2 weeks mandatory rest. But then we discuss future bookings. Agreed, I said. I found Kira in the medical bay an hour later. She was clean now, dressed in comfortable clothes, with several minor injuries being treated by the medical team. How are you feeling? I asked. Like I just fought a 3-meter-tall armored mountain, she said, but she was smiling. Did we win? You won, quite definitively. The breaker is currently unconscious in the next room over and very confused about what happened. She laughed, then winced. Sorry, laughing hurts. You have 2 weeks mandatory rest, I told her. Doctor's orders and management approval. Thank you, Vex, for everything. For looking out for me, for stopping them when they push too hard, for helping me understand how all of this works. That is my job, I said. No, she replied quietly. Your job is attendance coordination and filing reports. Looking out for me is something you chose to do. There is a difference. She was right, of course. Somewhere over the past 3 weeks this had stopped being just a job assignment and had become something more, not friendship exactly, but something close to it. A mutual respect between 2 beings trying to do their jobs well in a system that often made that difficult. Rest, I told her. Actually rest. No training, no interviews, just rest. I will, she promised. 2 weeks later, when Kira returned to the arena, there were 14 contract offers waiting for her from various combat promotions across 6 sectors. There were also 3 book deals, 5 holographic documentary proposals, and 1 extremely strange offer to become the spokesperson for a protein supplement company. What do you want to do? I asked her as we reviewed the offers in my office. She thought about it for a long moment. I want to keep fighting, but on my terms. Matches I choose, opponents I choose, schedule I choose. Can we negotiate that? We can negotiate anything you want. You are the most sought-after fighter in the galaxy right now. You have leverage. She smiled. Then let us negotiate. And that is how I, Vex Kaltor, simple attendance coordinator, became the manager for the most famous human in the galactic combat rings. My job is no longer boring. It is no longer safe, but it is, I must admit, significantly more interesting. Kira Voss continues to fight. She wins most of her matches. She loses some because even humans are not invincible, though she loses far less often than anyone expected. She has become a symbol, not just of human capability, but of what is possible when determination meets opportunity. The Combat Commission has created an entirely new classification system because of her. Other human fighters have started competing, though none have quite reached Kira's level yet. The betting syndicates have learned to account for the Deathworlder factor. The medical teams have developed specialized protocols. And me. I still file reports. I still track attendance. I still coordinate matches. But now I also make sure that humans and any other Deathworlders who join the rings are treated fairly and safely. It is a good job. A job I am proud of, even if it does require significantly more paperwork than I originally signed up for. Last week, Kira asked me if I wanted to visit Earth someday, to see where she came from, to understand the world that created her. I said yes, because if there is one thing I have learned in the past months, it is that humans are worth understanding. They are dangerous. Yes. They are unpredictable, absolutely, but they are also loyal, determined, and capable of extraordinary things when given the chance. Also, I am morbidly curious about what kind of planet produces beings like Kira Voss. I suspect it is going to be a very interesting trip, but that, as they say, is a story for another day. For now, I have matches to coordinate, reports to file, and 1 human fighter to make sure gets enough rest before her next bout. Because someone has to keep the galaxy's most dangerous Deathworlders safe. Apparently that someone is me. And honestly, I would not have it any other way.